So we'll kick things off with Anne-Marie Kelleher from the agriculture sector-based session.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. We had a great group this morning, and we got a lot of good information, and I was pleased to see that things were cautiously optimistic in regards to the agriculture sector in Eastern Ontario. So just to give you a rough overview, we kind of established that we had about 15,000 farms in Eastern Ontario, but about 15,000 of those are empty right now, or not being used. The number one employer in Eastern Ontario was felt to be agriculture. We're seeing a lot of diversification despite the availability of programs, and out of necessity. It was felt that the farmers are diversifying on their own because it's very hard to compete. The cost of entering the sector is very high right now. It was commented on that you need to be born into it or you need to marry well. And most people there admitted that they married for love, so that was good. But this makes it out of reach, actually, for the youth and immigrants, so that can be a different trend as well. We're seeing a trend in small farms. Non-traditional people are entering the market. We're seeing a number of retirees and new grads willing to work to farm as more of a lifestyle than actually trying to make it as a business. We're seeing that small farms are marketing directly to the market because there's so many barriers now in terms of entering into the wholesale market. We were pleased to hear from one of the participants that Loblaws is actually investing money into determining how to work with local food. Some of the strengths that we saw were actually the Eastern Ontario Development Program, the Eastern Ontario Development Fund, and also the RED funding from OMAFRA. A lot of people had taken advantage of those programs and felt that that was a real strength for Eastern Ontario. We're also seeing a number of trends. The ethnic market is driving the local food market, and it was also mentioned that the halal and kosher have the highest level of food safety, and those consumers are willing to pay a lot more for the product. So that was felt to be a real opportunity. It was also thought we needed an apprenticeship program to allow non-farm youth to get into farming. It was felt that the food chain is controlled by the multinational influences and that shelf life is a key ingredient of this food. People want the best, but they buy the cheapest, so that has been a real issue. We're also seeing a commercialization challenge for new products as well, and an example was used with baby formula made from goat's milk, and there was difficulty in finding a manufacturer in Canada that will actually help them produce that. So all baby formulas are currently imported. But again, we also saw that as an opportunity for further collaboration with educational institutions and manufacturers. Obviously, we had a lot of issues with policy and regulations. We weren't surprised about that. It was suggested they were unfair and there should be a hunting season for government officials, but as Heather and I are both public servants, we didn't write that one down. But we had some issues with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Exports need to meet very specific requirements, but imports are only inspected by complaints, so we thought that was a real issue. There's also a zero-risk culture that's threatening the sector, and I think we're seeing a lot of that with the listeria outbreaks and that sort of thing as well. So they felt that there was some policy that needs to be developed around that as well. Funding and financing is very difficult to get, especially if you're a new person without any assets. Or a young new entrepreneur looking to get into farming. That's very difficult. It was felt there was a lot of infrastructure needed in terms of research. But again, just to get back to the opportunities, we were really pleased to see that there's a lot of collaboration happening with the educational institutions and between the sector. We had good representation from both Trent University and Kemptville College in our sessions, so we thought that was very positive. Again, one of the opportunities for us is the distance to Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, and New York State. We're very close to those, and we have slower border crossings than many other places in Ontario as well. Three things were mentioned that differentiate us from the rest of Ontario, being water, land, and weather. We have better resources than anywhere else in the world for food production, so that was positive to hear. And the example was used about the grass-fed limestone beef that has better nutritional value, so it's building on those niche markets. And again, it was felt that we had a real opportunity with our land for small ruminants with the goat and sheep, and also some of the niche markets like water buffalo. However, we do need the resources and the support to assist this sector to capitalize on these opportunities. We thought that there should be some transferable skills training for the agricultural sector, and we want to see more joint opportunities and opportunities for joint ventures and collaboration. But we need somebody to facilitate these. They wanted to see an expansion of the Farm Start and Farm Connect program in Eastern Ontario. It was felt there was a lot of uptake in that in Southwestern Ontario, but maybe not so much in our area. It was mentioned we should create a mentor program and pair retired farmers and land with youth and immigrants, and maybe even pair that with an angel investment program. And again, just to continue the theme of they want new and improved, better government backing. And that would be in program and funding opportunities. So that's a brief synopsis of what we discussed today.
Is this going to work? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Eric Lockhart, and we had a very productive group looking at business and development services. We define this sector as business services such as consulting, legal, architecture, accounting, engineering, financial services, and construction, and any related services such as site servicing, utilities, etc. So kind of a broad sector. Business and development services. So some of the issues that we talked about, issues and challenges, Anne-Marie's touched on the demographics and tremendous potential with retirees in Eastern Ontario and how to tap into that expertise. And we had a lot of talk about a council of mentors and things like that. The downside of demographics, of course, a lot of youth leaving, especially rural communities in Eastern Ontario. Second challenge, immigration. And that's also been talked about, but we talked about the challenge of receptiveness and welcoming new cultures in some of our communities. We need to be ready for that. Labor challenge, third challenge, the shortage of skilled labor. Fourth challenge, federal risk mitigation and the onerous documentation requirements for auditing purposes really presents a huge challenge, especially to small organizations. They don't have the resources to meet some of those documentation requirements. Another issue or I guess challenge is home-based businesses, the growth of home-based businesses and some of the unique needs that they have. Two last challenges that were more sort of attitudinal and mentioned not an open for business atmosphere in many communities. Lots of regulations and constraints facing small business. And another attitudinal challenge, I would call it the ability to cope with change, and there's a bit of a status quo culture that needs to be overcome. So those are some of the issues and challenges we talked about. Opportunities and strengths, I kind of lumped those together. Terrific collaborative spirit, lots of existing good relationships, and you see some of those here today as this summit has been organized. Geography and location, we have lots of transportation corridors and proximity to urban centers on all our boundaries. And the history and heritage of Eastern Ontario, lots of implications there for tourism and attracting people here. Lots of clusters of expertise in education and training, and in particular e-learning and toolboxes, and the challenge related to that opportunity is making it easier to access some of those education toolboxes. And a last opportunity and strength, I guess, is the green and the alternative sector, alternative energy sector. Some knowledge clusters developing. I know in Kingston there are. And somebody mentioned in our session that the most hours of sun in all of Canada, which surprised me on a monthly basis. So what does this all mean for a regional collaboration? That there are some opportunities, and the four areas that the group mentioned in terms of opportunities for regional collaboration is infrastructure and accessing dollars related to infrastructure, broadband, and I know EOWC is working on that. We heard that last night, of course. Marketing the region and packaging the region regionally, and then finally establishing a strategic direction. We need someone to take ownership. Lots of examples of regional collaboration We need somebody to take ownership of moving this forward and establishing our priorities as a region. Overall tone on business and development services is, I would say, in echoing what Anne-Marie said, guarded and modest optimism. Thank you. Oops.
I'm Jeff Dixon from the Monessen Centre, Queens, and I was facilitating the knowledge-based economy session. My apologies to the people in my group if I miss your ideas. We may be the only group who actually had to discuss what is our sector. Tourism, most people know what tourism is. Manufacturing, most people know what that is. A knowledge-based economy, there's some more debate about what our sector actually is. So that's kind of a unique aspect of our discussion, likely. We talked about some of the trends that are leading towards the growth of the knowledge-based economy. Those would be certainly the increasing focus on innovation. We just heard that in our economic overview presentation, and certainly there's increasing government funding around issues of innovation. So that's driving the growth of the knowledge-based economy. Also, we're starting to see shifts in globalization with rising energy prices, and we expect that to kind of continue. Maybe the emergence of the globalization, the global economy, which combines the global and the local economy, which is leading towards a resurgence of local economies here in Eastern Ontario. Also, increasing technological change in society seems to be making business move faster, which means we need new ideas, more creativity in business. In addition to that, we're looking at youth operating different than previous generations. Youth seem to be more collaborative. They're educated in group thinking, well, not group think, but group collaboration from their early days in school. So it's creating a more collaborative approach to how they work, which gives greater opportunity for how we operate in business. Also, greater emphasis on entrepreneurialism in small communities, and that's helping foster the knowledge-based economy. And also the movement from old traditional manufacturing jobs to a new economy. And so where a new job's going to come from, that's part of the fits in with the entrepreneurial piece, but also is driving this new trend towards the knowledge-based economy. So what are some of the opportunities we have here in Eastern Ontario? A few. One would be to identify and recognize the creative people who are already here, because there are many, but we may not know how to measure the creative or knowledge-based economy locally. And if we can identify those people and recognize them, that can actually help foster further growth of those industries. Also, we do have a strong collaborative culture. We have many strong institutions locally, like the EODC, like the CFTC network. And so if we already have a collaborative culture here, that can help us foster knowledge-based industries and jobs. Also, we have the opportunity to foster entrepreneurialism through new economic development models, and so we need to capitalize on that and think about what are new ways we can do economic development to foster these jobs and move away from smokestack chasing. There's great relationships in many cases between communities and local colleges or universities, and so we can capitalize on those to foster innovation, foster creativity in business, and new ways of doing things. Also, we have many retirees bringing a wealth of experience from urban centers, coming from great careers in the big cities, and now that knowledge base is transferring to our communities in Eastern Ontario. How can we capitalize on that to grow the knowledge-based economy? Also, our place is unique. We have a unique environment. One, we have great access to markets because we are close to larger urban centers as opposed to some other rural communities that are more remote. And yet we also have a unique place that would attract people here from urban centers to a different style of life where they can still be connected. Moving to a few threats we face. One is lack of adequate broadband and wireless, and certainly we're making inroads in that arena. But technology is one of the kind of pillars of the knowledge economy, so we need better access to broadband. Also, we lack the social infrastructure to handle, to really attract immigrants and help them settle in our communities. So how can we build organizations, perhaps nonprofits or volunteer organizations that can help them integrate into communities if we attract them? So it's not just bringing them to our communities, but it's supporting them when they arrive.